And that looks like we are live. Fantastic. We'll just wait for George to get back to his seat, and we'll give a few moments for the participants to roll in, and then we can begin the webinar. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Can we just make sure that all of our microphones are not on mute? And as I said, we'll just wait for the participants to roll in, and we can get started with our morning webinar.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Fantastic. So where is everyone calling in from? I know I'm in Halifax. Kyla's on the West Coast. Eugene, you're in
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
No, I'm in Massachusetts.
Right. And George?
I'm in Toronto today.
Oh, you're in Toronto.
I am.
Very nice. Are you normally in Toronto or just today?
I have just moved a few weeks ago back to Toronto from Berlin. And so I'm getting used to saying I'm in Toronto.
Love it. Which part of Toronto are you staying in right now?
East End.
East End. Nice.
Yeah.
When I was living in Toronto, I was also located on the East End of things. It's a nice part of the city. It's really up and coming now.
It is very great. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right. Okay, so we're a little bit into the start time of the webinar. So we're just going to kick some things off with a few introductions and whatnot. So firstly, I want to welcome everyone who is listening and watching this video. My name is Desi Maliaka. I'm part of the HeroX team, and with me I have Kyla Jeffrey, who's also part of HeroX. And today we're super excited to be speaking with both George and Eugene, who are on the Mozilla Voice Challenge team. So welcome to the...
Thanks, Desi. Hi, I'm George Roeder. I am, as introduced, with Mozilla. I'm on our open innovation team and also have been working on a variety of projects across Mozilla related to voice, speech recognition, and voice data and speech assistance. So really excited to be participating in this challenge seminar today and talk to you a little bit about what we're looking for through this challenge, through this contest, and then the entries.
Great, thanks so much, George. It's great to have you here on the call, and I'm looking forward to hearing your insights and some great information about the challenge. But pleasure to have you here. Eugene, would you like to give a brief introduction?
Yeah, I'm Eugene Ivanov. My responsibility is to run crowdsourcing programs for Mozilla, and also I'm a reasonably new person at Mozilla. I've been involved in open innovation crowdsourcing for quite some time, and I've been a great fan of HeroX since apparently since shortly HeroX was created. I think that it's a great platform. It's a great move. It's definitely one of the brightest faces, if you want, in this kind of very bright landscape of crowdsourcing platform. However, amazingly enough, I never worked myself with Mozilla with HeroX before, and Mozilla has never worked with HeroX before. So for us, it's a very exciting opportunity to deal with this platform and to learn how this platform operates, how it's actually become so successful. So I look forward to this project, and I hope that it will be our first but not last.
Absolutely, with Eugene. And I'm sure this is the start to what we hope to be many more challenges moving forward. So thank you for that. And we are also, I reciprocate your excitement. Really happy to be working with Mozilla and you. So At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about the challenge. The first thing that I'd like to really hear from both of you or either of you is really just an overview of the Mozilla Voice Challenge. Could you tell us a little bit more about what it is and just get a little bit more details about what you're looking for?
Great. Well, why don't I kick that off, and then we can dig into more detail if we need to. So let me give a little bit of step back context on where Mozilla is at with respect to voice technologies and products right now. So over the past few years, we've been doing a bunch of what I would call exploration and technology development in this area. So we've had a number of products, some of which are experimental or beta version, one of which you can try out right now. It's a web extension called VoiceFill that adds itself into Firefox and allows you to search using your voice. But we are really looking at this space around speech recognition, around voice assistance, and seeing it expand and grow very, very rapidly. The number of people using voice assistants or saying they're using voice assistants in the United States is rapidly increasing around the world similarly, and is in the hundreds of millions and projected to grow into the billions. And so as we look at this and this technology area, we're going to be doing some more experimentation on products that allow people to engage, and in this case, aligned with Mozilla's mission, with the web using their voice. And so that's an exciting set of developments that will come over the months ahead, and we have lots of great ideas there. One of the challenges, though, is that all of the technology that underlies that, as most of the viewers of this webinar attendees will understand, is quite sophisticated. These are generally machine learning driven algorithms that allow both wake word recognition, speech recognition, actual understanding of what's being asked for, interpretation, connecting that to information and what the intent is, and then synthesizing that back out either as text or as speech to be able to be in a conversation with people. So that whole set of technology there is complicated. And requires a lot of data to train it really effectively. And so this is an area where Mozilla has been quite invested over the last little while, doing R&D on building up that technology. And one of the main reasons and our hypothesis is that right now when we look at the landscape, a lot of those technologies are currently proprietary, and owned within large entities. So whether that's Amazon or Google or Baidu or Nuance or Microsoft, really all of those technologies that allow that voice assistant or those voice interactions to happen are proprietary. What we believe at Mozilla is because this is a fundamental way for people to interact with the internet, that making these proprietary is kind of like back in the 70s and 80s if the mouse were proprietary or the keyboard were proprietary. It just doesn't make sense as a user interface and as a set of interactions. And so as an organization that is really, we're a nonprofit and we're really excited about the health of the web, we want to make sure these technologies are available for every developer to use freely and cheaply and easily. We want to be able to make sure that that these voice technologies are available in many different languages and can be applied to a variety of different use cases. And that's both for some of the products that we want to put out into the world, but we also want to see a much more rich and diverse ecosystem of products. And so to do so, we would like to really see the state of the art on voice technologies, those various different parts of the stack, advance for not just proprietary technologies, but also in the open source world. And Mozilla is developing a few of those. We have a great speech recognition engine called Deep Speech. We have a great speech synthesis engine called, which is Mozilla Text-to-Speech. But we don't have all of the different pieces to make an open source stack or voice assistant or voice stack. And while we have a pretty good, like we've been working enough in this area where we have a pretty good understanding of what's going on out there, where we are really excited in this challenge is to get the broader community of solvers ideas on what a stack like that actually looks like. So first of all, how would you interpret the various different components of that stack? We put out one mental model of that in the challenge description, but we're really interested to hear other mental models. What do you name them? What are the different elements? What are the pieces that might be missing from the ones that we put out? So that's kind of number one. The second is we know open source projects and technologies are evolving very, very fast. New ones emerge all the time. And so while we have a good sense of what the big projects are in each of those, we don't have a good sense of all of them. And that's where, again, we really want to understand and get ideas from our solvers on what are all of those different projects, open source projects that are available for each of those components. And probably more important, that would be pretty easy for us to do a bunch of web searches. More importantly, we're really interested in people who are technical and can evaluate this. What is the different quality of each of those? How far advanced are those projects? How popular are they? How likely are they to be successful open source projects? What are the architectural choices that have been made within those? Why are those interesting or not interesting? And really understand that landscape a lot better. And the reason, and this is sort of the last bit, is we're excited to figure out, can we as a organization figure out how to stitch together those various different open source projects? Obviously, not all of them are going to work together perfectly, and not all of them are of the quality that you would need. But we'd really love to envisage a full suite of open source projects that would work together well, that allows people to deploy either parts or all of that voice assistant stack in a way that would work together, the ultimate vision equally as well as if you went on to a Google SDK for their voice work and sort of we're working in that environment. We'd love to see that in sort of the equivalent of like an open source voice kind of SDK, and understanding how those different pieces work together. And again, we have a vision there and we have some ideas, but we're really excited about the solver community coming together and really getting into the specifics of, what are the pieces that are missing? Where is this going to be really hard? Where is this already easy? And, all we need to do is just package it up. And then finally, sort of what are the tools? What are the wrappers that we would want to be putting around that stack that allow developers to really engage in a great way and to sort of be able to say, hey, this is something I'm going to be interested in using. So that's kind of the overarching background, the context, the challenge. And it's very much it's a research and ideas based challenge. So we're not looking for code here. We're not looking for building anything. If you want to play around with connecting these pieces together and see if it actually works, that's great. We'd love that. What we're really looking for is the result of that being, hey, I tried this, kind of doesn't really work. Here's a couple of pieces that are missing, or here's sort of how you might want to think about extending the various different APIs or whatnot, such that these pieces work together. But that will help us immensely to be able to kind of take in these ideas and then really advance toward this broader vision of an open voice tech stack. So let me stop there, see if there's any questions or follow-ups.
Wow, George, that's fantastic, and it really gave us, well, gave me at least a very, very robust view of where this challenge came from, what it is that you're trying to address, and why it is important to do so. And I mean, I have many follow-up questions just from that introduction. But one thing that really just stood out for me immediately was how amazing it is that Mozilla is looking to solve this with people. You want to, it's something you're trying to figure out. It sounds like it's something that is very complex, or it hasn't been fully defined yet. And it's just great that you're including, the community, the solver community, and asking for their ideas of, hey, this is something that could be seriously great, but let's figure it out together and really design and create what the landscape can look like. So that's awesome. And like I said, I have many questions to follow up with. But at this point, what I really want to do right now is just quickly share my screen. And I'm going to do a very brief, walkthrough of the actual challenge page, just for everyone who is tuning in to watch the this Mozilla webinar. Just to make sure that they know exactly where all the important information is, and if they don't, how to just kind of briefly navigate the actual page. So can everyone see my screen right now?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so what we're seeing here is just the landing page, or the front page of the Mozilla Voice Challenge. You'll see that this is just the overview, which outlines very briefly what you just gave a great introduction to, what important information about the actual challenge. And you will see here there's this most important, the orange accept challenge button for all the people who are intending to submit and participate in the Mozilla Voice Challenge. They will just have to click on this, and they will be taken to an agreement page where they would have to accept the terms and conditions. Obviously, after reading all of it, we want to make sure that you know what you're agreeing to, and then you'll be taken to a page where you either want to participate as a team or individually, and then you can begin your entry, which is, at that point, you'll be taken to a submission form page, and you can start answering all the questions which Mozilla has laid out. But on this page, you can also just navigate between the different tabs, which all just give you a little bit more information about the challenge rules, how there will be a selection of winners, registration, submissions. Also very important to note would be the timeline, just to make sure that everyone is understanding and is aware of all the important dates, such as the date that you have to submit your actual proposal, when judging takes place, and when it will be marked as complete and won. And then the last few tabs are really just your places to go to for any new updates, any types of announcements that are shared from either the Mozilla team or HeroX. And then, of course, because this is an open platform, we want people to be interacting. So that's where the forum part of the page comes in. This is where you can post any new topics, any questions, and your opportunity to really interact with Mozilla or the community that is actually following or participating in the challenge. So that is a very, very brief overview of the actual challenge page. All the important things that one would need to know to participate in the challenge. And again, if there's any confusion that anyone might have who is participating in the challenge, the forum's there. You can always contact anyone on the HeroX chat desk, and we'd be happy to help you work through that. But that's where you go to participate in this amazing challenge. And at this point, we're going to move on to the Q&A session of our section of the webinar. So, George, that was a fantastic overview of the Mozilla Challenge. As I said, I really got a sense of where it came from, what you're trying to achieve. But let's dig a little bit deeper into the things that you said. And I also just want to say, for anyone tuning in to this webinar, if you have any questions that show up for you during any of us speaking, just pop open the little chat box at the bottom of your screen and post your questions there, and we'll address them as they come up. So we spoke about the problem that you're trying to solve, and what it is that the Mozilla Voice Challenge is trying to get from solvers. But can you walk me through why this is so important at this stage? Why is it that you're trying to solve this?
Hi, sorry, I was having a little bit of trouble with my audio. I'm back now.
Okay, great. Did you hear my question?
I did not. I didn't hear a thing. My whole thing just cut out.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I'll do it again.
Sorry
Okay,
about that.
No worries. This is technology for you. But anyway, so what I was asking, George, is that from your great overview, I understood, what it is you're trying to solve, and we briefly spoke about why it's important. But I would like to really dive into why it is that you're trying to solve this problem now. Can you walk me through that a little bit more detail?
Yeah, so where we're at right now within Mozilla is that for pretty much all of our product explorations where we are externally engaging with users and delivering functionality that requires voice assistance, we are almost exclusively, but not exclusively, using commercial services. So we're using Google's speech recognition, or Amazon's, and Amazon's poly speech synthesis, and various others of these. And that's okay for now. But we run into a bunch of limitations. One is we only have so much control. Obviously, as these services are stood up, they have particular limitations put on them around the types of information that you can request and get back. So that's kind of number one. Second is Mozilla and Firefox, as those viewing will know, is well known for privacy. And as an organization, all of our products and all of our work, we really want to have user privacy in mind. And by using some of these more commercial existing solutions, we don't have control over that privacy story. And this has certainly come to light in the last number of months, where basically all of these voice assistants, it's come out that people listen to the recordings, whether it's contractors, and the contractors, some of those audio files get leaked or whatever. And so we want the opportunity to really protect and have our users back. And so we need to be able to do that with these technologies that we're using. And then the third is really different languages in different parts of the world. So these are kind of three reasons why we need to stop using what we're using right now and instead start using what we think are should be open source technologies, but most importantly, technologies that we have the ability to control. And so at the same time, we are, as I said, a not-for-profit organization. We're a big one. We're about 1,000 people. But to give a sense, I think Amazon's team working on the same stuff is about 10,000 people. So we have a tiny team of 10 or 15 people working on these voice technologies, which is great. But we really need to be doing it with a much broader group of folks from other organizations and academia and companies and whatnot. And so really it's quite urgent for us to today be able to identify what are these various open source technologies that should be part of this voice stack, or to really extend our knowledge on this so that we can start pulling it together and start pulling together those projects and connecting them with one another, and connecting these various people working on these technologies in a way that allows us to have a very viable set of tech that we can use, but as I said, we're really hoping that others can use this too to be able to build products for people. That's sort of the why and why now.
Great. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned in the introduction of this challenge that there is stuff happening in this space, but a lot of it is proprietary. Is that correct?
Yeah, like there are lots of open source projects in this space, and so we certainly know of some, if not many of them, but we definitely don't know about all of them, and we definitely haven't used all of them, and so we're definitely excited about looking in this space. And then of course, a lot of the software, is it's built on open source frameworks like TensorFlow or various other machine learning frameworks, but the actual algorithms and how they're trained and also the data is all in-house. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost happening in a little bit of there's parts of it that's visible to people, and then there's parts of it that's almost operating in a black box kind of way. So you don't know the entire picture. And it sounds like that's what you're trying to change right now with, the starting point of, asking for ideas from the crowd and seeing how you can kind of stitch all these things together. So I'm really understanding this landscape that's currently in front of us. Can you talk to me about, why it is that the proprietary aspect is just not working? Like what is it that could be working better by introducing open source and technology, or open source technology rather?
Yeah, there's probably two big things. One is, so right now, if you go to Google, Google Speech, they have an SDK. You can send them basically API requests and you get back information. They even have sort of voice assistants that you can basically build by kind of interpreting various intents. So there's a bunch of reasons why that wouldn't be sufficient for us and for others. So one is, at scale, this can get costly. So it's about, let's say a $0.005 a request for speech recognition, just as one example, one part of the stack, which doesn't sound like very much money unless you start doing, unless you start having 1 million users doing 5 requests a day, then all of a sudden you're up in the neighborhood of hundreds or billions of requests a year, which at a $0.005 a request becomes quite expensive. And so, so there's a cost dimension to this. The second dimension is certainly control. So with any of these other solutions, it's basically kind of get what you get and don't get upset. And so if there's an open source projects, it gives developers the opportunity to tinker and change things around and optimize it for particular use cases. So for example, let's say you were building a set of tools for doctors' offices, and you wanted the opportunity for doctors to have sort of doctors or nurses or whoever to have like a very simple voice assistant that would do medical reference checks on particular, for example, drug contraindications or something like that. Being able to do that through one of these existing services would be really tough, because you wouldn't necessarily have built into Google all of the names of drugs and the ability to reference them really quickly and pull out that reference information. But if you had control over the whole stack, first of all, you could train your speech recognition engine with these various drug names, which are not going to appear in normal speech. You could train it to be taking references from a particular set of information. And you could train it to give them back and speak it back or deliver the information back in a particular format that's, quite tuned to, let's say, a doctor's office or something along those lines. So this is definitely a bit of it's not a real example. I'm not doing a medical startup or anything like that, but folks could, right? And right now it's going to be hard to do with some of these proprietary technologies. So, that's not a place that Mozilla is going to operate, but it gives a sense of the types of things that if there was an open source tech stack around this, that could be possible. And for us, it's sort of a matter of like that cost and control. And then the final part is really that privacy piece, right? So who has control over the data? Who has control over those interactions? Many companies, many people, and Mozilla is one of those, would prefer that we would control that and not necessarily outsourcing that relationship and that engagement to one of the existing providers. So those are kind of the three reasons, cost, control, and the ability to kind of really customize things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I just want to hone in on something that you said there is, a great example, I think, especially if you just thought of that on the fly. But it's that question of what if, so through this challenge and through this, this problem you're trying to solve, it's more than just this one challenge, right? It's creating possibility or, a world of what if, like, that people can use to create a whole bunch of other things. So it really sounds like you're trying to, give people tools to lean into that and be like, okay, what if we had all these things available to us? What would we be able to create? And I think that is amazing. And that's also, again, the power of turning to the world and asking them for these, asking them these questions and seeing what ideas people have. I think there could be some really amazing things that would come through. So that's super, that's just amazing. And, just with regards to, the data stuff, there is a lot of, that's been a topic of conversation, especially, very recently with, who controls the data, who has the data, who has access to the data. And it's nice to know that is on your radar, especially as, we lean into the whole open source, models and way of thinking. Yeah. So earlier in your introduction, you did mention that Mozilla does have some projects going right now. One of them being the Common Voice project. Is that correct? So,
so we have a bunch of projects right now. So,
okay.
Do you want me to talk about them a little bit?
Or? Yeah, well, I was wondering about how this challenge kind of plays into all of those projects.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a good question. Like, we're not a blank slate. We're not saying, give us ideas about what we should do. We don't know anything about this space. We have deep expertise in this area. We have lots of people working on this. So that's not it's not something where we're going to be learning from scratch, and the entries shouldn't try to, tell us from scratch kind of how speech recognition or voice assistants work, right? We have a lot of work in this area. So a few really active projects. One, I talked a little bit about VoiceFill, which is a way for you to search using your voice in desktop browser. A second that we've been playing around with, and we don't actually have a name for it yet, but people may have seen some of our work in this area, which is trying to almost put a voice assistant in the browser in a way that allows the web almost to be the assistant. So where you can imagine, you could say, hey, Firefox, could you please get me tickets for the Blue Jays baseball game tomorrow night? And it would immediately sort of figure out what that intent is and go out and send and put me onto the page where I could order Blue Jays tickets. So giving an opportunity to really get people to information and interact with the web. And that's sort of the first stage of something where we might envisage other types of interactions or voice interactions with the web or information on the web. So that's kind of the second project, really exciting, very early stage. A third is something called the Mozilla Web Things, which is our exploration and, again, series of open source projects into what a secure private IoT set of devices and ecosystem would look like. Again, certainly in its experimental stage, but has some really nice features already of being able to kind of have effectively a home assistant that's able to control a bunch of devices within your home. We don't have hardware there yet, but sort of working on software and explorations in that area. A fourth is the two open source technology projects that I mentioned. So Mozilla's Deep Speech, which is a speech to text engine, and Mozilla Text to Speech with a text to speech engine. The text to speech engine we've just started benchmarking and is as good or better than anything that's commercially available, and even beat some humans on staff at Mozilla, which is both frightening and very cool. And then the final project is Common Voice, as you referenced. So this is our really strong effort to crowdsource and compile open data sets that can be used for training speech recognition and potentially a later expansion of the project, voice assistants or different other types of open data that would allow really anybody to have the data that they need to build these technologies. So we're quite active in this space. We have lots of different irons in the fire, which also sort of makes this challenge even more. You can see how it's kind of immediately relevant and something that we would be kind of using the results of right away.
No, that's fantastic, and it's also, again, just so great to hear that there is stuff that is happening. But again, you're leveraging or like inviting people in to contribute and to give ideas and to say, like, what, we don't have it entirely figured out, but let's figure it out together, which is great. So I mean, a question that immediately flows into my mind from that is, how do you, they are immediately relevant, this challenge with all the stuff that's going on. How do you intend to use like submissions from the Mozilla challenge going forward?
Yeah, so, immediately one of the things that we are doing over the next months is starting to really design and architect how these different pieces of the stack will come together. We want to be choosing open source projects that we want to be investing in. We want to understand where they don't work that well with one another, and therefore we may need to do some development. We want to be starting to think a little bit about and architect a set of developer tools or an SDK of some sort that would wrap these, and then start to really get in touch with these various open source project owners and maintainers, and talk to them a little bit about what their thoughts are on really kind of almost joining forces, for lack of a better way to describe it, to be able to have an open alternative.
Great. No, that's awesome. So there is, opportunity beyond this to kind of, work and see or work together with people who are like looking into the space and have some knowledge and, kind of collaborate to see what it is that you can make together. That's awesome to hear. And again, it goes back to the whole, well, especially for HeroX, that's one of the things that we believe most, deeply, is the fact that that's where the magic lies, right? By opening it up to, everyone, because everyone has, ideas, and how it's not necessarily one's better than the other, but how can you use them together to make something even more phenomenal? So that's awesome to see that Mozilla is recognizing the importance and, value of that and really leaning into it. So then, okay, so I get how you're going to be, using the information, how it's relevant to current projects that Mozilla has going on. Can you tell me, when you're considering, open source solutions, are there any preferences or guidelines that you might have for people looking into this challenge?
Yeah, like there's a few things. We're obviously interested on how much these projects are being used, right? So, if it's just a brand new project on the scene, that's a little bit different than, hey, this project has a whole bunch of maintainers and a whole bunch of people contributing code. So it tells us a little bit about how healthy, I guess, the open source project is. That's kind of one. Two is a little bit of like a sense of, I guess, sort of the type of application. And so we are, in this open tech stack, most interested in stuff that could work in a commercial setting. And we know that there's lots of academic work in this area, and I think the academic work is really good. And at the same time, there's some of those academic projects that are probably less applicable to commercial settings. So really kind of looking through that lens and saying, all right, is this a neat project, but not necessarily, I can't really see sort of how it's commercially relevant versus something that you could see being used in products. So those are kind of two characteristics that come to mind immediately. Okay,
great. No, thank you for that. Perfect. And I think that definitely answers that question. That was one of the questions from our innovator crowd and community. So they definitely are looking into this project and wondering, how they can compile their solutions, which is great to hear. Another question did come through, George. So I just want to shift through to that question, which is, should the stack include components of all the three areas which you listed, or just some? Could you get into a little bit more detail regarding those?
Yeah, we're definitely interested in, first of all, people telling us whether or not the stack, the various different components that we listed are the right ones. Is that the same way that you would break it down? So that's kind of number one. Number two is, yeah, I think probably the strongest submission are going to be the ones that really give us a complete picture of the landscape. So, have a project for every component, or at the very least are able to say something about the components. If you say like, hey, we've been looking at wake work, we've looked at, 6 open source projects. Here are the 6 open source projects. Then none of them are really good. This clearly is a gap within the stack that needs to be filled. And here are the reasons why the 6 that we looked at are not great. So that would be the type of entry, again, that would be really stellar to be able to get that kind of evaluation.
Great. Okay, and that definitely gives a little bit more, I believe, insight into that question about, what is it that, will make up, like, does it have to include everything on the list in the stack, or like maybe just part of it? And I love the fact that you're saying, like, we have a hypothesis, we have like an idea, but, we're relying on the crowd to kind of give them their insights too. And, again, let's figure it out and see what the best way to put this together looks like, which is fantastic to hear. So something that we would also, what innovators would like to know is, going into this challenge, you just answered the question about the stack. What is it that they need to know? Like, what is it that if an innovator goes onto that page and clicks accept challenge, begin my entry, what is it that they would need to know when they do that?
What is it?
Like the most important things that they would need to know going into this challenge. And Eugene, also, if you have any insights, please do.
Yeah, Eugene, do you want to take a quick stab at that?
Well, I wanted. Okay, let me kind of give my kind of overview of what we're looking for, and if it's not enough, George will add. So, before I go into this kind of nitty-gritty of what is this great proposal we're looking for, let me kind of step back a little bit and explain why we came to HeroX in the first place, why we're here, what we are looking for. And as you know, organizations use crowdsourcing for many different reasons and in many different ways. And what I like about this voice technology project is that it actually includes different parts of using crowdsourcing. George mentioned Common Voice. Common Voice created a database, largest in the world database of voice samples available to everyone. 42,000 people contributed to this project in 18 languages. Well, Mozilla doesn't have 42,000 people. I even doubt that we speak 18 languages, maybe 10, 12, but perhaps not 18. So to accomplish that, we had to actually to go outside, we had to engage crowd. Now, this project is a little bit different because, again, as George mentioned, potentially, yes, we could browse the web, could do research, engage partners. Sooner or later, perhaps later, we would kind of collected all the information we need, but we need it now. We need it today to progress. So we need help. Again, we go to the crowd of people, help us to do something that we cannot do ourselves because of our size and resources. But there is also one additional aspect. What we're looking for is a diversity of response. Obviously, no matter how, Mozilla is a very diverse organization and very kind of open-minded, still, we're organization and we are looking for opinions that do not reside within our organization. So the message I'm trying to say, don't afraid to surprise us. It's not that we are afraid of being surprised by some very unusual proposal that you may have. Actually, we are looking for that. Having said that, I really very much encourage you to follow this kind of railways guards outlined in the guidelines section of the challenge, and Daisy showed. Maybe some of you already have kind of vision of a solution that you would like to propose. But I urge you, go to this guidelines page and read it again from the beginning to the end, and maybe then one more time. This is something that we're looking for good responses. George and members of the team, we put a lot of time. We put our kind of pieces of our hearts and souls in this section. So it's really what we are looking for. And when writing your proposal, try kind of to follow this guidance as fully as possible. Not only you'll help us to review your proposal fully and kind of and faster. You'll definitely make yourself kind of more visible. You increase your own chances to become a winner of this challenge. And then you add something to make sure that this guidance will be followed. That is kind of on technical side.
Perfect. Thank you, Eugene. Is there anything you want to add there, George?
Nope, that's great. I just saw a question from Alistair in the chat. That would be great to answer around licenses. Yeah, we are, we definitely have a Mozilla public license preference for a lot of the projects we put out there, but I definitely, we are in some ways for the projects that we ingest or see as part of this, we're pretty license agnostic. So GPL, Apache, MPL, like MIT, all those would be great. All the standard open source licenses would be great. If you come across a project with some kind of strange, non-standard baked license, just make a note of that so that we kind of understand how that would fit. But yeah, thanks for that question. That's super helpful to clarify.
Perfect. Great. And just so everyone knows, like, we will be broadcasting this or posting this actual webinar on the page after we've completed it. So all of these questions will be available to anyone who didn't make it to the challenge. So that's great. Again, perfect. So I'm just doing a quick time check because we are approaching the end of the webinar, and I want to allow a few moments for any, closing, final remarks from our great panelists. But one last question that I had, and I think, Eugene, you did touch on it a bit, but, we are approaching the submission deadline to this challenge. So if you could tell the innovators who are participating, besides reading the guidelines tab and then reading it again, I love that, that's fantastic, what else is needed from the innovators to set themselves up for success in this challenge? And this is open to both Eugene or George, but Eugene, I'll hand it over to you to kind of take an initial crack at that question.
Well, as I said, there are guidance to this challenge, and it's not that we kind of, we wanted to put something in writing. That is what we are looking for. And again, maybe I repeat myself, but it's very important. Again, I've been evaluating challenges for a long time, and I know that the best proposal is what follows proposal requirements and guidance. And again, there are no ideal proposals, but they won't be proposals. We honestly maybe even don't expect proposals that will meet all the requirements. Maybe it's even impossible. But the more you address the requirements that we ask for, the better we'll do kind of for yourself, and the more helpful it will be for us. And again, repeating myself, but within this frame, surprise us. We would love to be surprised. Surprised with what we never heard, with something that we never seen, with something we don't know. We don't know everything. Again, we would love to be surprised.
I love that. Yes, we're all trying. I'm a huge fan of surprises, so I also I would encourage all innovators to do that, and propose things that maybe are better or different, and that's a great piece of advice, Eugene. Thank you. George, is there anything else that you would like to add to that?
No, that's great. I'm really excited to see some ideas from the solver community.
Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. Well, we have gotten through all of our questions. There are a few more moments left that we've had scheduled in for this webinar. So I just want to take a quick moment to thank you both for taking the time out of your day to chat with us and to the community about this challenge. It's super exciting. It's different. I just love the fact that it's a space that you're exploring, not by yourself, but with the community who are interested in open source technology and really trying to build something together with them. I love the fact that you very eloquently said that you don't have all the answers, but that you want to find them, and you're not afraid to find something that maybe is different or maybe better than what you're doing right now, which is awesome. And that's where the real disruption happens and the real magic happens. So I'm excited to see the submissions that come through for the challenge. I'm sure there will be a lot of surprises, Eugene, for you. And we'll make sure that, moving forward, I'm very confident that Mozilla moving forward will, incorporate into their current projects and really help build an amazing open source, landscape. So with that, I can call the webinar to a close. If there are any follow-up questions, again, to the community, for the walkthrough of the challenge page that show you where on that page you can post questions, and then these experts on the Mozilla team would be happy happy to answer that. So with that, thanks again. Kyla, thank you so much. And Eugene, George, we'll
Thanks
see you
everyone
soon.
for being here. Thank
All
you.
right then.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.